Why do you wear the vestments, and what do they symbolize? What is the purpose of the altar? So really 3 questions. By the way, how do you like the white stoles? Do you like them? I think they're pretty. My favorite are the blue.
Yeah, those are
I like the blue for Advent, and then I like these second best.
Should we go in the back and just start trying them on, and we can take
just
a vote?
bringing them out,
yeah,
sort of a fashion show? That's a good idea for you.
Yeah, for me. So a lot of times, sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, "Oh, I'm glad you're wearing your robe. That way I know you're the pastor." Interestingly enough, originally the exact opposite intent was intended. The idea of wearing a robe is not so that people can know that somehow we are pastoral. It's to cover us up, because we don't matter. If you go back and you read Leviticus 16, the Day of Atonement, Aaron, he's the high priest in the Old Testament, and you know what he wears? Normally he'd wear a very adorned robe, but on the Day of Atonement he'd wear a very simple robe to show him as a sinner who is covered by God's grace. What I'm wearing under this robe doesn't matter the suit that I'm wearing, the tie that I'm wearing, the jacket that I'm wearing. In fact, the person under this robe doesn't matter. The fact that I am called by God to testify to His truth, Pastor Tucker is called by God to testify to His truth, that's what matters. The altar, let's say a quick word about that. The sacrifice that Jesus did on the cross is done. And so we don't need to make sacrifices on an altar. That's why we get a sacrament from the altar. A sacrifice is something that you make for God. A sacrament is something that God gives to you. And so the altar both points us to Christ's sacrifice, and it reminds us that Christ still gives Himself for us.
Yeah, one of the things that you notice is when I approach the altar, whether I'm coming here or whether I'm walking back that way, I always reverence the altar. And the point of that is just to show respect for that very special place, and in particular, that very special place where the elements of communion reside. And so that's another part of the whole idea of the altar. One thing with regard to the vestments is exactly what Zach was saying. I love the fact that you don't have a choice of whether you like the shirt that I'm wearing or you like the tie that I'm wearing. The reality is that this is about making the message of the gospel preeminent. The thing that I pray every time that I come up here at the bottom of the stairs before I walk up here, when you see me turn on my microphone, my prayer is, God, allow me to be your mouthpiece. Not about me, about God and His Word. And that really carries through with the idea of the vestment. It's not about the person and what we're wearing. Is there anything wrong with wearing other kinds of vestments or not wearing vestments at all? No. And there are lots of churches where they don't wear vestments. But in our particular context, in our tradition and culture, the vestments are part of that. And again, it's not a right or wrong, but in my mind, it's a blessing. It protects us from some level of distraction.